difference between the two sermons are readily apparent. One was delivered on a mountain, Matthew, the 5th chapter, verses 1. The other was given in the plain, Luke 6 and the 17th verse. The sermon on the plain is about 1/4 the length of the Sermon on the Mount. The Beatitudes, which opens the sermons on the Mount, Matthew 5, 3 through 11, contains blessings only. The Sermon on the Plain opened with fewer blessings that are followed by acts of corresponding woes. Woes and blessing. There are two differences there. Woe unto you. Bless you. There's two different things there. Woe means harm, detrimental, not good, but blessing means good. Okay. A curious comparison of Luke 6:20 through the 29th verse with Matthew 5 through 7 also show how much these sermons have in common. Both sermons show great concern for the poor and socially outcast. Example, Matthew the 5th chapter and verses 10. Luke the 6th chapter verses 20 through 22 teaches love for enemies. Example, Matthew the 5th chapter 43 through the 48th verse. The central of mercy and the nature of the kingdom. Example 5 through 7. Opposition to hypocrisy. What about hypocrisy? How is hypocrisy prevalent in today? With politicians, with folks in leadership, and what they're saying and how they're acting. Hypocrisy is saying one thing and acting another, or acting in one way and saying something else. That's hypocrisy. That means that you're not true to what you're saying. Opposition to hypocrisy, and so forth. That both of these sermons deal with those themes, indicating just how commonly they appear in Jesus' preaching and ministry. In Luke 6, the sermon comes to the heels of a controversy with the Pharisees, after which Jesus left to pray on a mountain. As on the occasion, deep prayer precedes a significant moment in Jesus' ministry. On this occasion, prayer precedes Jesus choosing the 12. After that, he came down to the plain. When Jesus opened his mouth to speak, he lifted up his eyes on his disciples. In other words, it was the disciples, those who were already committed in word and deed to follow the Lord, who were the primary audience for what he had to say. Others were present, the people that were overhearing a message directed at Jesus' followers, not primarily at them. This is an important point to hear in mind as we undertake our study. Jesus was describing the nature of the kingdom in these verses. He painted a picture of the community that he was forming around him and its way of life. These still are not words directed at outsiders or at the world at large. The Sermon on the Plains opened with a series of blessings and woes like 6:20 through 26 and above. They undercut the conventional view of the world that justifies the way in which most Jesus hearers lived out their daily lives. Most people, both then and now, would point to the rich and powerful, the popular and the elite, as successful and honored in this life. Jesus said this is not so. How does that fare in the face of what you believe? And how do you cater and bow down to the rich and the famous and those who have and those that do not have? Do you gravitate toward to giving them more than they already have, giving your substance to them? What about in honest gratitude or thanks in a situation that you walk into where there are needed funds for do something, and do you give of your substance and hope that it will help balance out the need for the person that is bearing expenses? Jesus said this is not so. Rather, it is the poor and hungry that be the benefits security, who are truly blessed. They can look forward to unimaginable blessing on that last day, in the last day. Those that do not have, that's who Jesus Christ is favoring, and not to the rich and famous that got everything already. They are enjoying what they have here, and their riches and their benefits of what they're going through is being foretold with them. In a return of hatred, but I say unto you which hear, but I say up to the artist, whether hearing or reading, to discover a contrast. Unto you, which here seems to be equivalent to meaning to that familiar phrase from the gospel, he that had ears to hear, let him hear. When he say ears to hear, he's talking about let your heart hear. Let your heart hear. Okay? The ones who hear is not merely capable of making our audible sound of speech. Rather, hearing requires understanding. And more critically, the obedience to what we heard is about receptive to the message, a willingness to transform one's life in accordance with demands of the message. Be willing to be doers of the word, not just hearers of the word. Let it go into your heart and you act with your heart in a manner that is according to God's word. Love your enemies, do good to them that which hate you. The command, the same out of Jesus' mouth, was and still counterintuitive. There is nothing else like it in all texts that come down to us from the ancient world. For instance, the poet Hirasi gives the typical understanding of one's obligation to his enemy. Love those who love you and help those who help you. Give those who give to you, never to those who do not. Look at that. That's a total contrast from what God said and what it said in his word. All right. It is not a part of unsanctified human nature to love enemies. The demand that Jesus makes is that the verse is one that most of us resist almost instantaneously. It is highly standards and not natural for us, but is surely attainable. You can love your enemies. Even though it's difficult to do, you can love your enemies. But you can, with Christ in your heart, love your enemies when they do you wrong. You can turn that other cheek when they hit you on one side and hit you on the other, hit you, stab you in the back, whatever way. You can do it with the help of God. 2 Corinthians 7:1 contrasts Hebrews 10:14. This believer who is growing becomes increasingly able to extend love to enemies. Love is defined by action. Do good. You hear that? It is defined by action. Doing good toward one that do bad toward you. Not sentiments or feeling. Love costs something. It does not come cheap. It must be coming from the heart. And that means a change of heart. A change of heart. Very much a change of heart. How about that? You must change your heart. All right. Bless and pray. Bless them that curse you and pray for them which despitefully use you. Clear message there. This deals with love demonstrated in speech. These are examples of most likely would have come from the daily experience of Jesus' hearers. Many of them were socially marginal or poor, thus already not commanding the respect of their peers. Speech and praying and reaching out and calling out to God, telling about the situation. That's what it means. Call out to God. Tell him what is wrong. Tell him, even though you're hurting and you're in pain, you still call out and you still pray. You still do what is need to be done in spite of the pain in which you're going through. The pain of your body aches or whatever. The pain of somebody doing something wrong to you. The pain of somebody putting upon you and doing harm to you and hurting your family or hurting you or your loved ones. But you're still loving and calling out to God and praying for them, not against them. Okay? All right? Check your prayer list. I feel blessed to have lived 63 years without encountering many enemies. My most painful experience have come to in the employment arena. On these different occasions, I have lost jobs. In these instances, I felt some degree of being ill-used. Looking back, I'm not proud of my responses, although I did lash out. Neither did I put those who irritated these painful scenarios in my prayers list. I sure spent much more time feeling sorry for myself than praying for them. How about that? Where did you fit in that category? Huh? What did you do when somebody indirectly or directly did something for you to lose your job or your livelihood for your family? What did you do? How did you behave? How did you take it? What was your prayer list? What was it? Jesus didn't say we have to enjoy being treated poorly, but regardless of our feelings, we can honor Jesus' command to pray for anyone who has caused us pain. Often people means to do harm, so we're actually praying mostly out of our own attitude. If they really are out to get us, we can forgive them in prayers and ask God to work in their hearts. Is there someone you need to add to your prayer list? Think about that in your own personal life. Is there somebody that you need to be praying to? Is there somebody you need to be praying to God about? Is there somebody that did something and you know they did wrong towards you? Is it time for you to change the prayer that you've been praying God to? Pray for them, not against them. Let God deal with it. It is God's job to punish those that do wrong, not yours. You do not qualify. You qualify to turn your cheek to your left cheek, or you qualify to pray for them, but you don't qualify to do anything to him, because you do not have the power to do that. Let God do his job, and you do your job. All right, your job is to love them and forgive them. All right, be forgiving and generous. How about that? How about being forgiving and generous also? And unto him that smiteth thee on the one cheek and also on the other. How plain is that? Okay, what do we need to say about that, huh? How plain and clear is that, huh? And to him that taketh away that cloak, and forbid not him to take the coat also, give. In other words, they want coming and taking your stuff. Give them all give it to them. Let them have it. God will give you more in the end. All right. Remember Job and how. And there's a passage in the Bible that says God reigns on the just as well as the unjust. God giveth and the Lord taketh away. How about that? Huh? Remember, Job's wife was telling him, curse God and die. I mean, no, don't do that. Let God do his job and you do yours, okay? Enemies' love extends to our attitude toward our possessions as well. If the cloak is required of man, he should offer also his coat. This goes well beyond the laws which will not allow the coat to be taken as surety of debt, or following Christ are not to be stingy with our things, because they are not ours to begin with. How about that? Example, 2 Corinthians 9:6-11. Moreover, we should trust God's provision enough to expect to be repaid for what we give each other, as Israel was called to trust him, that they subscribe the best of their flock and fields, okay? That they sacrifice the best of their flock. And don't just give anything. Give the best that you got, all right? All right. Love for all. In light of this, we can imagine that commands such as these would have rubbed many in the multitude the wrong way. Even so today, or even though my words are being spoken as to how you should behave, there are some, perhaps in this audience, that do not believe that. They believe that you get them back. If they hit you, you hit them back. You stomp on my cat, I stomp on your dog. Whatever the metaphor is that we use to describe getting back and doing things like the world. The world is a totally different place in the understanding of how God treats people and loves people and cares for folks. Just like God forgives you and loves you over and over and over and over again in spite of your iniquity. Think about that. Think about how God has been. He's blessing you every day. Even though you do wrong, he wakes you up this morning. He helps you start you on your way. Hey, do good for people. Love them all. Enemies, neighbors, friends, love them all. Love for all. All right. Above average standards, love them all. That's above average standards. I mean, the standard thing is just kind of go along and get along, treat people. If they do me okay, I'll do okay by them. That's just okay. Anyway, you just treading water. You just you ain't doing nothing special. No. You got to be special. You got to go above. You got to be above the average of what folks are doing. All right? Got to be above. and ye should, would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. Like you want somebody to do good towards you, you do good towards